Hello, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to take you through a guide to learning at USW. Whether you're starting out for the first time or moving from a different form of education, it's important to ask ourselves this question. What is learning at university like? Is it the same as it was at A-levels? Is it different to what it was in further education? Well, the answer is kind of yes to both of those. It is a little bit different. Will be similar things. And today I'm going to talk to you about the mechanics of learning and how we teach you at university to give you a better understanding on how to really make the most of it. So if you look at this diagram, we can see across the bottom we have our red arrow with the words learning across the top of it. Now this is our learning journey. We go from left to right. Now the way that we look at it at USW is we use an idea developed by a psychologist called Vygotsky. It's called the zone of proximal development. And this looks at this. This is where we are right now. This is your zone of knowledge, what you know, nice big ball of all the different things that you know. And at the end of your first year, let's say, this is all the stuff that you don't know yet. And you've got to get from one of those balls to the next. And we do that through a process that we call learning experiences supported by feedback. And this is what Vygotsky might call a scaffolding approach. And what that means is that we build a framework, and they're the experiences, and that we support those experiences through feedback. So you try a few things out, you get some feedback on them, you learn from that process, you do it again. But it also looks at the idea of modeling behavior so that you are prompted by your academics and your teaching team to support you with new learning, and that you watch people do it. So you see people demonstrate a certain set of skills. For example, it might be using a sewing machine, very simple like that. And then you watch them do it, and then you have a go yourself. And you learn from watching and then experiencing where you might go a bit wrong, where you might go a bit right, how you could improve. And as we move through the course, you can see that actually what you know and what you don't know yet, okay, they kind of stay the same and they get bigger a little bit. And the learning experiences supported by feedback become less structured. They become more kind of focused and a little bit less structured. Not so much perhaps teaching in your, say, second year of the course. And as we move into the final year of your degree, you can see that what you know becomes really big. You know a whole bunch by the time you get to the final end of your, by the time you get to the end of your course. But also you recognize there's so much more to learn. And that's a really important thing, recognizing that there is so much left out there. And that's really exciting because there's so much more to explore. And then if you look at our circle in the middle, our learning experiences supported by feedback, it shifts away from kind of structured teaching per se, and more kind of guided facilitation, that we kind of nudge you in the right direction and we support you in your learning. So you're the owner of that learning process. The next question might be how you get taught. That's a good question. How do you get taught? Well, lots of things. There'll be like classes and lectures and projects and all those different kinds of things. But behind that sits an interesting theory. And that's a theory of constructivist learning. There's your friend and mine, Vygotsky again. This time he's joined by Jean Piaget. Now, Vygotsky felt that learning happens in a community and it has to be structured, and that scaffolding allows us to kind of grow within that structure. And Piaget felt that people learn from discovering things, trying things themselves and discovering things. And they do this through learning experiences. So one of the key things at USW is that you're not a passive participant. You're an active participant in all of your learning. Your learning happens through experience. And it's really important that you know why you're doing that learning. I think often we might sit in a classroom and the lecturer talks or the teacher talks, and you think, why am I learning this? Why will I ever use this? How will I ever use this? And a really key thing about university education is knowing why you're learning things, how your learning might be applied in a real-world context. And that's supported by your teaching team. Now, these guys help drive your learning, but they're only one part of it. Learning is a social thing, so we must have our peers, we must engage in our kind of university community, and that's both in a small level within your classroom, but in a large level across your course and across your sister courses and across the university as a whole. But the person that sits right at the heart of all of this learning is you. You're the learner. All of these things are designed to support you, but that means that you have to be an active participant. You have to engage, and you have to have faith in the system to know that it's there for you. Now, this is the question really that we've all gotten down to. How do I get the most out of university? How do I get the most out of my learning? Now, it's interesting here that you see that are focused on learning and not so much assessment. And I think often through primary and secondary school, our heads are kind of in this space that I must do assessment, I must focus on assessment, I must pass, I must pass, I must pass. University is primarily focused on learning, not so much assessment. It's important that you have that mindset, that if you understand that you're there to learn, not there to pass necessarily, and by learning you will pass, it's pretty straightforward, that will put you in a great place to succeed. Now let's look at another kind of learning theory model. It's called the learning zone model, developed by Tom Steininger. And that says this. We have our learning journey here, and you can see that's our standard red arrow. And right now we're in our comfort zone. We feel really safe, we're in control, and it's fine. We're going over familiar things we've done before. We're just doing maybe variations of stuff we've done. And there'll definitely be a little bit of this at university, and it'll be different for every person. You may have done a little bit of one thing, but not something else, and vice versa. Now, the key here is you're not learning anything in your comfort zone. You're just comfortable. You're in control. You're safe, but you're not growing. And often what happens when we get something new, our first response is this. We leap into the fear zone. We get really, really scared that we don't know what to do. And so what we do then is we start to procrastinate, and we find excuses about why we can't do things. We lack the self-confidence to ask the questions that might help us. We start listening to other people and thinking, oh, maybe they know what they're doing, and I don't know what they're doing, and what I know what they're doing. And then we have this physical response where our heart beats a bit faster and we're feeling very anxious. And that's a really natural response. That's a natural response to something new, to feel a bit afraid, a bit fearful of the unknown. But it's only when we move through that level of fear that we can kind of get into the learning zone, that we can think about our challenges as being something that we can tackle, where we acquire new skills, we practice new skills, and don't be afraid of not getting it right. We accept that things are going to be challenging, and we try them, trying new things. And in this way, what we might do is extend our comfort zone. Our comfort zone will grow, and we'll become more confident in taking on challenges. And that'll lead us to the growth zone, where we can set new goals, we can conquer those challenges, but more importantly, we can find a purpose. We can really find a purpose for our learning. We can figure out why we're there. Now, it's really important that you see each one of these steps. Now, often students will feel very, very happy in their comfort zone, and they're too afraid to leave that comfort zone. But you won't learn anything if you don't leave that comfort zone. There's that kind of very famous kind of quote that says, all ships are safe in the harbour, but that's not what ships are built for. That you have to try, you have to go out and you have to kind of try new things in order to learn new things. And as we move on in your journey, this is what happens. Your fear zone becomes a bit smaller. Your comfort zone extends a bit further. And this shift happens over a number of years, but it might happen really quickly. It might happen in a couple of weeks. It might happen in a couple of days as you start to find that, it isn't really the end of the world if I try new things. Nothing bad's going to happen if I try something that doesn't work straight off. That practicing things is actually a really positive thing. And what we hope by the end of your course, and ideally a lot sooner, that we get here, that your growth zone's grown really big, that you're trying to explore new ways to grow, that your learning zone's extended, and you've replaced your fear zone with an excitement zone. These things really sit very closely together inside our minds. Fear and excitement. They're the same feeling. And if we can harness that idea that actually I'm not scared about the new project, but I'm excited about the new project, then we put ourselves in a really positive mindset to learning new things. And you can see our comfort zone's grown because we've become comfortable with the idea of things being in flux, with things shifting around. That's the key with learning is always changing. There's more to learn always. And if you can love to learn, and if you can get into the headspace of desiring to learn, then you'll be in a really great place. Now, here's how you can succeed at learning. Here are some tips from me. Firstly is to take some risks. You can start small, but it's important that you grow. A really small risk might be, a very simple thing like, oh, what if I draw this design with my non-dominant hand? What's the worst that can happen? What if I try a different, media to draw it with? Those are quite small risks. Into some really big risks like, okay, well, what if I go outside in the rain in this garment that I've designed to keep the rain off? That might be a bigger risk to see if it actually is waterproof. And you can grow further and further and further. But the point is to always be at the edge of your comfort zone. The point is to be at the edge of your comfort level so that you can grow. Now, it's important also not just to always be at the edge, but to reflect on the distance you've travelled. And that might be for you to think about some other things, maybe reflect on learning to ride a bike, learning to drive a car, learning to read, and how difficult it was at the beginning and how simple and natural it feels now. And that can really be brought across to your learning at university, how you reflect on the learning that you've done. And maybe that's something that you do every week. You might write a reflective journal every week, just a couple hundred words that says, here's what I did this week and here's what I learned and here's how I feel. And I guarantee in a few months when you look back at those journal entries, you'll find that you've made significant progress. This one is so important. Engaging in sessions, attending sessions and participating in sessions is the most important thing. It's really important not to be passive. It's very difficult for educators to know how they can support you if you don't tell them, if you don't engage. And as you saw before, those kind of structured sessions where you engage, they're all part of the learning process. That's the constructivist learning model. You have to be involved for it to work. Now, this might mean that you're giving feedback, that you're receiving feedback, that you're asking questions, that you're just trying things out. That's really important. But if you sit there and don't engage, don't ask questions, don't offer your opinion, don't offer your feedback, then it's a very difficult thing for yourself, but also really difficult for the rest of the class. So if everybody engages and everyone participates, then everybody progresses. This next one is really, really important. Ask for help. That is what we're there for. That is what your teaching team are on campus for. That is what the university set up to do. We're here to help you. But you have to ask for it. Putting your hand up and saying, I don't understand this, is actually very appropriate. Sending an email to a tutor saying, hey, look, I had a look at the lecture that you did last week and I've watched it a couple of times and I still don't really understand it. Can we have a chat about it? Great. Perfect. We would love that. And that only happens by asking as many questions as possible. Design is all about understanding why. Remember, we looked back at that constructivist learning, and it's important that you understand why you're learning. So ask as many questions as possible. The answers might not be very obvious. They may be obscure. They may be out of your reference. There might be something that you haven't encountered before. So ask as many questions to really understand as many things as possible, and you'll grow and grow and grow. One thing that you see a lot about highly successful people is that they ask a lot of questions as they try and get to the bottom of things. The next one is really, really important. Embrace not getting it right. There's no right answer with design. There's no wrong answer with design. But you have to embrace that uncertainty. You have to try things as many times as you can. Often I hear students when they start to use industrial sewing machinery, for example, and they say, oh, I'm not very good at sewing. It's like, well, you're not bad at sewing, you're just not good yet. You just need to practice it more. You need to understand that, you're not going to be perfect at anything the first go around. And if you wait until you think you're perfect, then you miss lots of opportunities to show your work and lots of opportunities to explore other avenues. And that's as important for design process as it is for kind of making something. Don't wait until you think it's perfect. Engage in it now. This next one's really, really important at university. Nobody is going to push you through. It's important that you own your own pathway. you own the decisions you make, and that you own your own education. Now, this is key because we work with you as a staffing team. We work with students to develop the course. We change the course based on your feedback. We ask for feedback all the time. We want to make our course better and better and better and more exciting every single day. So what we ask is that you support us and you help us by owning your own pathway, knowing where you want to go, having, well, maybe not that, just having a good idea of where you are and what kinds of things you'd like to do, but being in charge of your own decision making. But the only way to do that is to be you. Is to not try and be the person that you think the teachers want to be, to not try and be the person that you think the rest of the class wants to be, but to just be you. That's really, really important. There's no trick to the projects you'll encounter at university. Don't try and guess what the lecturers want, because we don't really count. We're there to support you and your learning. The brief is the thing that guides your decision making. These last two are really important. It's really important that you listen to your body. If you're feeling like really tired, maybe you need to think about managing your sleep in a different way. If you're feeling really hungry, maybe you should think about the types of food that you eat. Now, both those things will impact the way you learn. Both those things will impact the way you're able to take in knowledge, the way you engage. But also, you might feel feelings of fear and discomfort and anxiety. And it's important at the time to be mindful of those and to think about them at a time like that, to feel that you are going through those emotions, but they will pass. And that's often about listening to your mind and listening to the logical side of yourself to think, okay, where have I encountered this feeling before? Was it when I was learning something new? Okay, and what happened in that situation? Okay, I moved past that feeling and learnt the new thing. It's really important to connect with all those things together. These tips will help you succeed at learning. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for continuing to like and subscribe to these videos and following us on Instagram. And thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.